Hey everyone, I'm David Finz, and on this episode of the Cyber Insurance Imperative, we're going to take a look at a recent ruling by the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals in a major business interruption loss. You know, it isn't every day that we see real coverage litigation around cyber insurance claims. True, there have been some well-publicized cases involving cyber attacks, but most of the coverage disputes have centered around property and casualty policies. Well, here's one that goes to the very heart of the scope of cyber insurance coverage. The case stems from a computer system failure back in 2016, impacting one of the nation's largest airlines. The airline had sought and obtained coverage from the primary and first two excess carriers for its losses stemming from the incident, but by the time the claim had reached a third excess layer, the costs for which the airline was seeking reimbursement became a bone of contention. The outage disrupted flight operations for 3 days, leading the airline to compensate its passengers through various goodwill gestures, covering their incidental travel costs, issuing them vouchers for future travel, and also extending a sales promotion. The third excess carrier took the position that these costs were discretionary on the part of the airline, and as such, they were either outside the scope of coverage or fell within specific exclusions under the policy. The carrier's argument rested on the premise that these losses were not incurred solely as a result of the business interruption, because the airline incurred them voluntarily. The trial court agreed, and the airline appealed. In its ruling, the appellate court noted that the airline's decision to incur costs to mitigate business losses was part of what it called, and I quote, a causal chain that led back to the system failure. Now, the court made clear that it was not deciding whether the airline was entitled to recover all of these costs, since it was possible that doing that would result in betterment for the airline. That is a fact-specific determination which would have to be made by the trial court. The appellate court only concluded that the trial court should not have dismissed the case as a matter of law. The court also rejected the carrier's argument that the policy did not cover what it referred to as consequential damages, finding that such a strict interpretation would render the coverage illusory, limiting reimbursement to such items as technical repairs, while not actually addressing the loss of business income and reimbursements to customers. The court did seem to cast doubt on whether the advertising costs associated with extending a sales campaign could really be said to have flowed from the outage itself, but that's yet another question that will have to be determined when the case is sent back to the trial court for further consideration. Now, there are two lessons here for businesses. The first is that it's always better to ask for permission than to beg for forgiveness. These additional costs undertaken by the airline might well have been reasonable and necessary, but it's not clear how and when that was communicated to the adjusters. Why didn't the three underlying layers question those expenses? Maybe it's because they knew their policy limits would be exhausted anyway, given all the other costs that were not in dispute here. Regardless, the positions taken by the excess carrier here could easily be raised by a primary insurer in a claim involving a smaller business. So always communicate with your broker about the expenses that you are incurring as you seek to recover from a business interruption and look to maintain the confidence of your customers. The second lesson here is that policy wording really does matter. Cyber policies are not standardized, and there's a great degree of variation in the terminology, as well as the underwriting appetites of various carriers. Here at Alliant, we strive to ensure that our clients enjoy best-in-class coverage enhancements and clear contract wording. For a copy of our white paper detailing coverage currently available in the cyber marketplace, you can DM me on LinkedIn or email me at david.fins@alliant.com. It's just one more way that Alliant helps you find the more rewarding way to manage risk. Thanks for watching.